Hi there, this is Pat McDonald. Your host tonight, new word, new name, Banter and Beans. It's a new format that we've put together here at ORCA with my co-host, Palin Cohn. And Palin, may you just introduce yourself right now before we turn to our guest?
Yeah, thank you, Pat. I am Palin Cohn. I'm Montpelier City Councilor here, and I used to serve on ORCA board, and I am also one of their community producers. So I have so many ideas, and thank you for listening to me. I'm like, yeah, we can do it together. Yeah. So I'm very happy that we start this new program.
Yeah, great.
It will be fun.
Yeah, this is great. And you know me as a host of Vote for Vermont, and it's a fairly similar program. We'll be hitting a lot more people to come in and talk about what's going on in Vermont and what's going on in particularly Montpelier. So there you go. But our guest today, our very first guest, this will go down in the books as a special day, is Ted Brady, who's the Executive Director for the League of Cities and Towns. And this is nothing new to you. You've done all this stuff before. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, well, thanks, Pat. Thanks, Palin. Nice to be with both of you. The Vermont League of Cities and Towns is a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization that every single city and town in the state of Vermont is a member of. In addition to that, another 150 or so units of government, things like villages, fire districts. We were formed more than 50 years ago, largely to advocate for the municipal voice in the State House. And we've grown from there to also be a technical assistance provider for city councilors, select board members, town clerks, treasurers, auditors, go down the list. And in addition to that, we provide some shared services to municipalities. So we are a local officials one-stop shop of assistance.
Big on insurance.
Yes.
That's your...
one of the biggest pieces of pooled services we offer is a municipal property casualty liability workers' comp insurance for all but 3 cities and towns in Vermont.
Great. You have got, and people should know this, one of the best links on your website to publications. Huh. Whatever you want to know, you just go on the league. You've just got a great resource.
We've over 60 years, we've created more than 1,000 pages of web content about how to do your job as a municipal official.
Yeah, excellent. Good job. Yeah. All right, so tonight there's some things happening in the State House that we wanted to talk about, and a lot of us know what pilot is, P-I-L-O-T, and I don't know, I've only known it, that's what you're going to have to hear to explain it. I've only known it like in the municipality itself, where it picks an area that it wants to develop, and they make it a pilot entity, and then any taxes that would accrue from there go back into developing the area. That's what I always thought we were talking about. But these bills.
Yeah. Well, just to be clear about pilot, you're not wrong there. I mean, the payment in lieu of taxes is exactly that. It's any time you allow somebody to pay a payment instead of paying it on an assessed value, right? You pay this payment in lieu of taxes. So whether you're an entity in a town that doesn't need to pay tax and you come to an agreement with the town, we're going to pay this amount of money instead, not on valuation, but something else, those kind of agreements. Or in the instance we're talking about today, the state owns a lot of property, right? And the state doesn't pay income tax. Property tax. And so in lieu of paying a property tax, the state recognizes that their property, their buildings, put some strain on municipalities. And so the state does pay something to towns for their property, and those are what are called payments in lieu of taxes.
Mm-hmm. And I remember I was on the council in Berlin for a bunch of years, and we would sit and negotiate with the employer, and that was always kind of interesting discussion, but because they use all the services that we provide, water, fire, emergency services. So,
right, it's very common for towns to have an agreement with the big institutions that don't need to pay taxes, but those institutions oftentimes will say, hey, we recognize that we value the town, and we're willing to pay something, so let's negotiate a fair payment. Instead of paying on the assessed value of the property, they'll pay what they can or what the town tells them they're going to.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, and also local option tax, right? Is it included or not?
Yeah, well,
But this-
here in Vermont, the way, it's funny, right, the state pays pilots payment in lieu of taxes on a lot of different things. A&R, right, pays
Oh, yes.
a pilot for all of the forest land and
Yep.
facilities they
Yep.
have. That's different than, say, the prison system, the corrections that pays pilot, or different from, you're here in Montpelier, a state office building or the Capitol complex. It's different units of the state pay for that. Sorry, going back to local option tax. So the state law also allows municipalities to implement a local option tax. Towns have to vote on it at a public meeting, and it's 1% local option tax. Towns get to choose whether they want to do it just on sales, whether they want to do it on rooms, or whether they want to do it on meals and alcohol. And so there's three distinct choices.
Or all
they can
three.
make. All,
Yeah.
or
That's what
all
we
or-
did, all three.
Yeah.
We have
Yep.
the same thing in Montpelier
Yeah.
too, yeah.
Yep. And then that money, despite what people may think, that 1% does not go straight to the town. The state collects that money and then pays itself to collect that money. Then puts 25% of that money in an account that pays the state's payment in lieu of taxes, and then remits now about 75% back to each of the towns. So if your town raises $1 million, you are retaining less than $750,000 of that for your own projects.
I didn't know that part.
Yeah.
That's what got me
Ours.
started. So
Yeah.
if I negotiate with you, and is it nonprofits too?
Well,
Some nonprofits. right?
Sorry, a different topic, right? I'm just talking about the state payment in lieu of taxes.
Oh,
So that
okay,
local
all right.
option tax
Yeah,
only
right.
pays the pilot for the state's
Okay,
properties.
all right. So now I'm getting myself confused. So, no, sorry. Where do the nonprofits fit in? Because some of them are exempt from taxes, so you can collect from them as well, right?
So that's on the property tax side. We're talking,
okay,
the
all
local
right.
option tax, I should have pointed out, right? It's on the sales tax side.
Ah.
On the property tax side, which, again, it's the municipality's job to collect taxes,
Yep.
to collect property taxes. Again, the municipality keeps very little of those property taxes, and it remits most of that money to the state, which most of it goes to the education fund, right? But towns have, there are certain entities that don't pay property taxes. Certain nonprofits, certain government organizations. And those organizations oftentimes will enter into an agreement with the town to pay some other dollar figure in lieu of a assessed tax on their property. And so that's where it comes at the town level.
Okay.
The town has the right to set those pilot payments.
Got it.
Yeah, so maybe I can add
Yeah,
that.
please.
That's why this local option tax are very good for towns, because we can receive most of it, and it is based on how much shopping people doing in our towns, and also it's include online shopping. So that's why
Right.
last December during our budget session we received quite a bit, although it is like the first time, and everybody's, oh my god, we have all this money, what should we do? But it is already like
Yeah,
gone
you've
to
already spent
specific
it. Yeah.
places. But it is very good for towns to create some kind of revenue in addition to other taxes, because nowadays really high tax rates get really difficult for people who live in like on a fixed income,
Right.
retired people or like middle class people. So I think it is good that we will talk about that, like state raised the town's portion of pilot in a local option tax. So this is good. This is good for all of
Do you
us.
know how many towns have a payment in the pilot programs? Do they have?
So I know if you look around the state, again, I don't know how many towns and how many towns are giving a pilot for property tax, have a pilot relationship
Oh,
for
really?
property
Okay.
tax with nonprofits. I'm not sure of that
Okay.
number. different topic on local option tax, so I
Yep.
don't know which way you
Oh,
want to
no,
go
I'm sorry,
there.
because we've been fighting not doing local option tax. I was fighting for it because I said if Barry, Berlin, and Montpelier have it, that's okay with me because we all share the Barry-Montpelier road. But if they have it and we don't have it, that could be an advantage to us, but then everybody had it, so we wanted to have the money. So there you go.
So sorry, were you asking how many towns have
Yeah,
local
a
option
local
tax?
option tax.
Okay, yeah, there are about 50 towns and
Oh.
cities that have now adopted local option taxes. There's been a 40% increase in the last 2
Nice.
years, largely because for years, this is, God, sorry to go back into the history
Yeah.
vaults here, but when Act 60 passed, Act 60 realized that there were going to be towns that were remitting a lot more money to the state. And it was sucking up taxing capacity, right? You had these
Yeah,
gold
right.
towns that were losing
Right.
so much property tax to the state that they lost the tax capacity to maintain their roads, to run rec departments, do all these things. So the state the legislature, when Act 60 passed, allowed about a third of Vermont towns that were these gold towns to pass a local option tax. And only about 25 to 30 of them did that
Right.
in 30 years. Really interesting,
Wow.
right? And the 2/3 of the other towns that were not given this authority, in order for them to implement the local option tax, they had to pass a charter, or they had to pass a charter change,
Oh.
which requires you to go to your voters, get a charter amended or make a charter. Then that charter, if it passes, needs to go to the legislature.
Right.
Then the legislature dickers around with it and either does pass it or doesn't pass it or changes it, and then it becomes law. 2 years ago, the law changed and allowed towns, any town, to adopt a local option tax without a charter.
Right.
And that made it easier. And to Palin's point, as the squeeze has been put on the property tax, this is the only other revenue source that a town can look to, the local option tax. Another thing, sorry, this is a
No, please go.
monologue.
Right
Another
ahead.
big thing that happened, and the reason we see now 50, where it was, about half 10 years ago, the Wayfair decision,
Oh, right.
which started requiring online retailers to collect sales tax. When that happened, not only, this was not only a thing that the tourism towns and market towns, the Willistons,
Yep.
the Dovers could benefit from, but it suddenly became something, even if you didn't have a big retailer in your town, there was a significant amount of online retail happening. And so more towns are benefiting. Another thing, God, so many big changes, right?
Right.
The Airbnb economy exploded.
Right.
So whereas before the only towns that could benefit from the meals and rooms tax were those that had big hotels or bed and breakfasts,
Right.
now almost every community has a lodging establishment that you could collect meals and rooms tax without impacting your local tax base, right? You're not taxing the
It's a business.
Vermonter, you're
Yeah.
taxing the person coming from
Yep.
southern New England or New York.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Airbnb is another thing because Stove just passed another registration fee or like some kind
Oh,
of
for the
tax
B&Bs?
yeah. So because nothing is black or white, right? Local option sale tax, Montpelier tried a couple of times, and just last year people said yes before they said no.
Yeah.
Airbnb and like creating registration fee and everything. It's again, there's always some kind of a tension.
Yeah.
Because like very meaningfully, people are looking from different perspectives. But all the things are happening in like city governments, like trying to find new revenue because everything is so restricted.
Yep.
Like at the end of the day, most of the city governments are left, you can only put new tax. Otherwise, like there
Right,
is
it's
no
getting-
other thing to do
right,
to
exactly.
raise and have more revenues. Yeah.
Squeezing tight, just squeezing,
Yeah.
squeezing.
Well, if most Vermonters pay their property tax, and they may not realize this, but most Vermonters are paying at least 80% of their property tax to the education fund.
I guarantee you, they don't, most of them don't know it. They don't know any of this stuff.
Yep. And so the other 20% or less in some towns is going to your municipality to run your fire department, run your library,
Right.
and pave your roads. And the towns feel an obligation to control that 20%, right? So constantly, when the city of Montpelier is passing its budget, they're doing everything they can to make that budget as efficient as possible. And they control it and keep it down to a few percent increase. Meanwhile, the school, there's not the same control at the local level. And so that number has grown and grown and grown, which means the municipality's portion of the pie has shrank and shrank and shrank. And that's why you have more potholes on your streets than you ever had
Yeah,
before.
this year's bad.
Yeah, it is.
Just getting to ORCA Studios, you could do damage to your car. It's sad. But anyway, I don't know, do you want to, we should change to the bills that you're fighting at the moment, or perhaps just talking about with the legislature. They're dandy. I don't understand how that fits in with pilot, but talk about the bills that you're up
Well, sure.
against.
Just to stay on local option tax for a second, the big one is as these 50 towns have adopted the local option tax, the fund where this money goes to has grown.
Right.
And now there's a surplus in the local option tax fund, which pays that 25% that the state remits, that the state keeps. That fund has grown, and there's a surplus of between $10 and $15 million in that fund.
Wonderful.
And that's after the state has fully funded all of the payment in lieu of taxes for state-owned buildings. There's some debate about whether fully funding those pilot payments is actually appropriately compensating towns and cities for hosting those places, but at this point it's 100% funded. So this $10 to $15 million surplus has become a piggy bank for legislators.
Right.
Maybe the next question really related with that. I'm very happy to hear that you start talking about this, because if pilot is funded, right, by local option taxes, who should ultimately control how that money is used? Is
Who's
it
really, right?
cities, towns, like, city governments, or is it the state?
Yeah.
So
Or
what's
maybe
happening?
Vermonters,
Yeah.
our pockets.
Yeah.
Everyone agrees that the 75% the town gets to keep now is up to the town how to spend. There's no limits on how the town can spend it. Most of them are dedicating that money to transportation, public safety, you go down the list. That 25% that the state is keeping, it's a special fund. So the rule is the legislature gets to decide how to spend that money. We at the league think it would be very short-sighted of the legislature to spend money that towns have voted to tax themselves on. It would be short-sighted for the legislature to decide how to spend that money without input from the towns and cities.
Works for me.
The legislature has not taken that guidance. Last year, they spent some money on tax stabilization for properties impacted by flooding, which is not a bad purpose, but it wasn't something that we suggested. This year, the governor's budget adjustment request and the legislature's budget adjustment act took $3 million of that money to pay for grand list property valuation. So something the state has historically paid for. They've taken the money out of this fund. And there's a proposal to permanently do that, which we have successfully fought back this year so far, but the legislative session is far from over. So our belief is that the city of Montpelier, the town of Williston, the town of Wilmington should have some say in how this 25% fund is used. More importantly, we think they should return more of that fund.
Oh, that's the
back
part
to
I
the
liked.
towns.
Right.
So what are your members? I will go a little bit like
Yeah.
different question. What are your members saying about this? Like all the towns and cities who are under the umbrella of of your institution. So
Yeah, well, the number one thing, the 50 towns that collect the local option tax generally say, maybe we should keep more of it,
yeah,
and send less to Montpelier. The next thing they all universally say is, this money should be used for the best interest of the municipalities, and those that collect it should benefit the most. But, they talk about the need for transportation funding, they talk about the need for housing, they talk about the need for social services and mental health things. So towns have a wide variety of things they'd like to see the money spent on. The most important thing is they want to be consulted. Towns think that we should have some say. The legislature does not agree, right? The legislature's opinion is once we collect the money and it goes into a state account, it's our job to figure out how to spend it, not yours, towns.
And what is the discussion about using this money for reappraisal and training listers? I mean, that's just so they can get more money, right?
Well, that is the funny thing, right?
Yes.
So they want to use there's a huge change happening and something Vermonters most likely have no idea is coming. For the last 2 or 3 years, the legislature has been fiddling with how we do property valuation in the state. Currently, it's a shared state-local responsibility. So every town has either listers or assessors.
Right.
They're sometimes elected, they're sometimes appointed, and their job is to do property valuation in your town and to do grand list maintenance. So every year, update the grand list. And that's what the state sets your property tax rate on. The state has a Department of Property Valuation and the Department of Taxes. They are an incredible partner to towns. They have people in the field that train these listers. They have people in the field that answer questions. And increasingly, there are special properties that PVR, the Property Valuation Department, will help towns figure out. The big change that's coming, sorry, Pat, you asked a loaded question.
Go ahead, I'm ready.
The big change that's coming is the state is trying to consolidate the appraisal process and make the appraisal process more uniform. And so there've been multiple bills. There was a study that was done to see if we could create regional assessing districts, removing the property appeal, the property valuation appeal from your local government to a state entity.
Really? Don't like that one.
It's coming.
Be ready.
And to do all of this, it's under the guise of saving money. However, the current system is largely a partial volunteer-run system, so it's pretty cost-effective.
While they're increasing the value of your home, they're going to save money. That one doesn't fly, Ted.
That's what they
Just saying.
Yeah. The other thing they're trying to do is there's a shortage of appraisal companies. So when
That's right.
more than half of the towns, I think more than 2/3 of the towns are under reappraisal orders right now.
Yeah.
They're years late on doing their reappraisal. And that's largely because you can't find somebody,
Right.
a firm, to do the reappraisal.
A lot of them have them in their charter every 5 years, every 10 years, so they're even against most of them are against their own charters because they're not following the charter.
You go out and sign an appraisal contract right now with a firm, it's going to take 3 years before they can get to you.
Yeah, wow.
So in the state's defense, one of the things they're also trying to solve, they're trying to make it cheaper to do the reappraisal, but they're also trying to get some element of scale. Like the theory is instead of 247 towns going out and doing a reappraisal, you could get a bunch of them together in a region, and that might attract a bigger company. It might attract somebody to offer you a smaller fee per property. Go down the list. But that I didn't answer your question, Pat. I'm so sorry.
That's right.
The question was, what's the connection between local option tax, and reappraisal? The legislature is using some of the surplus to pay to implement this system, under the idea that every town benefits, because towns would have to pay for this otherwise, which is hooey. Mm-hmm. The state has for years paid for grand list maintenance and gives every town a per parcel fee of general fund money, and the town is supposed to put that in a bank account, and when the reappraisal time comes, it should be enough to pay for reappraisal. It isn't currently enough, but at least it's something. And this is a big change they're now taking. To Palin, your question, who should control that 25%? They're now saying, we're not going to pay for it with state money, we're going to pay for it with your money. And
Do people know what's happening around Vermont? I mean, are you getting calls from folks that are maybe a little upset about this?
no, it's very inside baseball, right?
Yeah.
So no, when we alert our members, town managers and select board members and city councilors and town treasurers, they'll reach out to their members and say, hey, this isn't right. But generally, the average Vermonter doesn't really care how their property valuation is paid for. It's really inside baseball.
Yeah, and as an elected official, when I talk with Montpelier residents, the feeling is that, okay, we are collecting this revenue, but we are not in the picture when we spend it or to use it. So isn't it a little bit against the idea of like state and local governance, like they are really they are independent, they are interrelated but independent, but doesn't this idea blur that line, right? What is the state's responsibility? What is the city government responsibility in terms of collecting and allocating local revenue?
Yep.
So is there anything, like any discussion about it? Because sometimes it is very important, like, yeah, great, let's support each other, but at the same time, leave local revenue to local people so we can improve things.
Because the roads alone, as we just mentioned, are pretty awful this year.
I think the reality is when people go to vote, in order to implement the local option tax, the whole town needs to vote on it at town meeting.
Right.
Right? When those people show up and vote to tax themselves, I think most of them think that they are retaining all of that money.
Exactly.
And so, of course, they would assume that they, are just voted to fully fund whatever the projects are in their community that this will go towards. And towns, every town I've seen do this explains that 25%, or at one point it was 30%, gets retained by the state. So they're very transparent, but people assume. And therefore, they think that they'd get to choose how to spend that money. Another boring fact for both of you, and I know that you both know this, in Vermont, we're what's known as a Dillon's Rule state. A Dillon's Rule state means that it's after this judge 120 some odd years ago, somewhere in the Midwest, that said if your state does not specifically say towns and cities can make their own laws, your towns and cities can only do what the legislature says they can, what the state says they can. So here in Vermont, we are creatures of the state. The city of Montpelier can only do what the legislature has said it can do. If the city of Montpelier wants to raise a tax, unless the legislature says they cannot do so. So that's really unique. So I think in Vermont, when they take 25% of their money, the law is the state gets to decide how to spend it. I don't think that's right, but I think that's legally accurate.
That's a lot of excess they have. It really is. That's staggering to me, and that's what got my attention. Was that how can you build up a cash of that amount? That's without doing something really positive with it. And then I was reading they're going to use it for appraisals, and I'm like, oh, so we can pay more on the value of our house. Yeah. It's sort of a circle thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So is this like a one-time budget fix, or is the beginning of some new structural shift in Vermont and how Vermont funds its obligations? Like you were talking about the rules and everything. So will we see these things? Like it will start with pilot, but it will affect other practices, or it's only like a one-time budget fix? We will collect the money, we will use it, and then it will not affect other areas what state is telling to do.
There are dozens, if not hundreds, of special funds in state government.
Right.
Okay.
So where the local option tax money goes, it's called the local option tax, the pilot surplus, the pilot fund, right? The pilot fund.
It sounded like me before.
Yeah,
I'm getting them so confused.
Jeez, I know. Lot is in pilot,
Yeah.
right? But the lot special fund, all the 25% of the local option tax goes there. And as that pot grows, people are naturally going to say, I have pet projects I want to fund with that. And so legislators go and raid that pot. That's how these hundreds of special funds work. They're a designated revenue source that goes into that special fund, but the legislature has the authority to make the law. So they have the authority to steal from these special funds anytime they want.
I think we called that pork funding in the federal government,
Yeah,
didn't we? And we all hate it.
Yeah, it's not quite as bad as earmarks. It's usually a priority. So
Right.
Representative Kornheiser, the chair of the Ways and Means Committee, who's been really the champion of reimagining how we do property valuation. So she's like, well, I know there's a fund here I could take some money from and fund my special thing. At the same time, we're working with legislators in the Senate the local transportation funds, so there's about $100 million in local transportation aid that the state gives to local governments every year.
Yeah.
There's an effort to use some of the lot money, the lot surplus to pay for transportation.
But overall, isn't the federal government sort of pulling back their shares on a lot of things? I know AOT is struggling with the amount of money we're getting from the next level up, from the feds.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think, the heydays of the infrastructure bills,
Right.
that's dried up. And so we're not getting as much transportation money. But I think the bigger problem in Vermont is, and across the country, is most of our transportation programs are funded either by federal money or by the gas tax.
Yeah.
And the gas tax
Oh.
revenues are plummeting.
And we can circle around to electric cars, and that'll keep us going for the rest of the year.
I just read something today about like mileage fee or something, right? I don't know the details, but like, oh my God, I will be in a big trouble because I am traveling for my work.
But
And
if
like,
you travel out of state, which a lot of people do, what do you do about those taxes? Do you really charge somebody for driving to New Hampshire? I was talking to somebody on the show a while ago, and we just it just went round and round. I don't know what the answer is. It's really scary.
The hard part is the only answer there is we do need more money for transportation. Project costs have gone up, the revenues are going down, and our roads are reflecting it. You drive Interstate 89 from here to Burlington, they did a big repaving project, and there are already marks in the road from truck traffic. Drive around the city. The town of Bennington has not increased its paving budget in 20 years. It was some crazy number
Really?
like that, because there's just not more money. So we need to find more money for transportation, and I don't know what the answer is, but
In my day, when they used to talk tolls,
yeah,
I'm like, oh, good, go do that.
yeah.
That'll help with tourism. Anyway, but Ted, I know I found a couple of bills that had the word pilot in it, and one had to do H851. You probably know it. I don't know the numbers. I just know what it says. It says an act relating to establishing pilot programs related to highway services for electric vehicles, public transit, and rideshare. That's a new twist. Where are you guys on that?
No, that's not one that we're really that involved with. And I think in that fund, right, the pilot in that one is a different pilot, I think. I think it's related to a demonstration project.
Oh, okay, so it's not pilot.
Right.
So
right.
how about H941, which has to do with agriculture? And I read in your letter that you had a few things to say about that one.
Yeah.
He wrote a letter in opposition to some of this stuff.
I don't want to bore you all with the details of municipal governance. But, so Palin, you're a city councilor, right, in the city of Montpelier, and Montpelier is a pretty densely populated place. Do you have any farms in downtown Montpelier?
downtown, no.
So there are,
Just wait.
and so you're in Berlin, right?
Right, yes.
And the city's the new town center. Is that what it's called?
Yes.
The new town center.
Coming soon.
Are there any farms in the new town center?
No. But there used to be almost 7 or 8 farms in Berlin. Now we're down to 2 or 3, so we might take advantage of this.
Well, what I'm trying to drive at is our most densely populated areas. They're generally not where you need agriculture and want agriculture happening, because agriculture has plenty of benefits, but it also does have some some downsides if you're in a densely populated area. Look up in Orleans. The town of Orleans has a 4-acre farm in its downtown with several hundred pigs on it.
Oh.
It's right on the Willoughby River, but most importantly, it's in the village of Orleans. Like, it's downtown. There are
Smell of nice.
There are pests. There are smells. There is noise. There's a lot of issues going on up there, and up until last year, towns could do nothing about that. For years, the general understanding was towns cannot regulate agriculture in the state of Vermont. Well, maybe you heard of the ducks up in Essex Junction.
Right.
So in Essex Junction, in a neighborhood, a farmer was growing cannabis, and was raising ducks. And not just a couple of ducks, a lot of ducks, and not just a cannabis plant, a bunch of cannabis plants. Neighbors were upset with the smell and the noise. They took this fella to court, and the Supreme Court ruled that in fact we had it all wrong. Towns can regulate agriculture, they simply cannot regulate water quality practices. That's left to the state. You can imagine the agricultural community get real worried because ag is suffering. I mean, ag, it's not easy to be a farmer, and we want more farms in Vermont. And so they've been quick to say, we don't want another obstacle, so towns, you can't regulate us. And they've been in the legislature fighting to restore the zoning preemption on towns.
So you said water, the state takes care of that. Because if you have farms, there's this thing called runoff, which could impact water fairly significantly, right?
Yeah, and it is the town's job.
And how many pigs?
Yeah.
Don't even want to think about it.
The idea is that the Agency of Agriculture and the Agency of Natural Resources are supposed to regulate that. And the preemption that existed was that towns shouldn't be engaged in that. And I think what we think is, we don't want to regulate agriculture in 98% of Vermont, but the Vermont League of Cities and Towns thinks towns should be able to deal with regulating agriculture in our most densely populated areas. So we've proposed that in our downtowns and village centers, municipalities should have the authority to regulate farming. And I think Vermonters generally agree with that, but the legislature and, of course, the agriculture community is very concerned about that. So they've been fighting against that.
What is their concern?
Their concern is that towns are going to overstep their bounds and make it impossible to farm in Vermont. And my argument is, look around. Where right now towns can regulate agriculture because of the Supreme Court case. It's not happening. Towns don't want to. Towns want farms in their community.
But they also want that densely populated downtown to be exciting and an attraction to tourists, and maybe the pig thing just wouldn't be on their to-do list, you know?
And bigger land use issues, right, Pat? So a couple years ago, the legislature preempted towns on housing and said anywhere you have water and sewer, you have to allow up to 4 units on an acre, 4 units on a site, and up to, I don't know, was it 12 or 20 units per acre? It's a lot of housing. It's a big difference for some of our communities. But what it's saying is the best use of these places is to build housing. These places where we have water and sewer and small lots, build housing. The best use might not be to raise 400 pigs.
Can't even imagine it.
Where we put water and sewer in, those are the places we should put houses. And if you can facilitate farming in an area like that, towns should have the ability to make sure that the housing and the farming can coexist.
So, Ted, can we, I just wanted, if you have anything else you'd want to say about pilot and what you'd like to see happen, because I do want to switch to your municipal priorities for the rest of the show, just so people know what you're dealing with.
Yeah, well, no, I think the big thing, Palin, you nailed it. Who should have the say over how the local option tax revenue is spent? To me, it's pretty clear. The people that raised it should. And the compromise that we've had in place is that a portion of this funds payment in lieu of taxes, and a portion of this goes back to the towns. Let's make sure that towns are getting the most money in the payment in lieu of taxes as possible so that they can meet their needs, and let's make sure that towns are retaining as much as possible. That's our goal.
And I don't think they should be allowed to have such a surplus.
Yeah.
There must be something that could be written that says thou shalt not, you know, put it back where it came from.
Yep, you know? If only Pat was still in the legislature.
My pocket. No, it's fair. I mean, Palin, we're on a fixed income. Bruce and I are retired. It's ridiculous. And I always think, I had enough. And I say to people that retire, you better double check, because it's not staying the same that you know now. It's just going to get more. We don't seem to save money a lot in this state. We don't have that capability much.
And also we need more people, right?
Yeah.
And people are leaving Vermont, unfortunately, for different
I
reasons.
think we're one of the, are we not the highest percentage of people leaving? That's a new statistic that came out recently. I saw that.
Yeah, I think our pandemic bump of attracting people has
Yeah, right,
reversed.
right.
Yeah.
They went back home.
Yeah, like Montpelier population, what, like maybe last 30 years didn't raise any. We need like 2,000 new people.
Yeah.
Like if we really wanna
Well, and
have
I'd love
everything
to
we
know.
want in the future, but like
Yeah.
how we will attract 2,000
Yeah.
people, like all the things we are talking about.
Yeah.
People wanna live in cities and towns that they can have all the services.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we like to, and rightly so, I mean, we like to help the people that need help. I think that is one thing we could say positive about Vermont. We've got good heart,
Yeah.
but you also have to be able to pay for it. And we don't do that so well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to see if they're going to find enough appraisers to do that work, because Berlin was out of an appraiser for a long time, couldn't find anybody. Then somebody stepped up and agreed to be trained, which isn't easy
No.
when you walk into somebody's house and looking around and,
Yeah, that's another issue too. I don't want to like take more time, but when I'm talking with people, they said my house is not that good. It is very old, like 100 years old. But when people come and appraise it, suddenly the value is higher.
Right.
Look like it is not that expensive, and I cannot sell it because of that. I cannot pay tax based on the like appraisal value. So there are so many things we can talk about. So I hope you can come again, because look, all the list of topics
the league
we
is
want
right
to
in it.
discuss. Yeah.
I was on your board for a couple of years. That was fun. There was some good people working hard.
We've got a
You've got
wonderful
a great
team.
group. Then, of course, there's your annual meeting, which is one of the best around. If you get to go, I
Yeah.
like to go to that
Yeah,
one.
town fair every October.
fair.
Get the biggest gathering of municipal officials in the state.
Right, it's great. The lunch is great. Good.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I wanted to switch. We've got about 15 minutes or so. Your legislative priorities, you've got a really, I'm going to put it on the screen
Yep.
of your legislative priorities. Of course, we've talked about some of this already, but lowering property tax, there's an obvious one. What's happening? Are you getting through to them? perhaps?
Well, I think we've talked a lot about where the league is on that. When it comes to lowering property taxes, municipalities can only control so much. And one of our beliefs is you need to diversify the revenue sources that towns have access to. And so
Makes sense.
the only way a town pays for, 200 of our towns only pay for their town using property tax. And so we need to lower that burden by diversifying revenues. That's our big claim. So this local option tax effort is one of those. We've talked about potentially finding other revenue sources. When you think about when you pay your local, when you buy a car, for instance, right now you don't pay a local option tax on that. So could you potentially look at something like that? When you buy something off of Amazon, there are some states that apply a per parcel fee to go into the transportation fund, because
Right.
those trucks are pounding
Yeah.
our dirt roads. There's a lot of places you could look so that you can at least diversify the revenue away from the property tax, so that homeowners get a little bit of relief.
Yeah. I don't think they mind so much about spending money or giving money to the state, as long as they see
Yeah.
the value of their dollar, the roads being fixed. I remember one year, we worked really hard on the school budget and the town budget and got it down to Zippo, assuming that our property tax was going to go down. And then, of course, nobody understands that it gets blended into the big pool in the sky.
Right.
And they came back with a higher, people went crazy. And we were trying to explain to them how it works. But so they said, why should we bother to really save and scrimp and cut our costs when we're going to have, and it's a good question, hard to
It is.
answer.
And that's what, the biggest thing the legislature is doing this year, in my mind, is trying to tackle the education question. And my wife serves in the legislature. She's on the House Ed Committee. And I always, our dinner conversation often goes to the question of, what are you trying to do there? And, we had a great conversation always. And I say, are you trying to reduce the cost of education? or are you trying to improve the quality? And, the answer is always both.
Yeah, for sure.
And Pat, you just nailed it. I don't think Vermonters would be that upset with their property tax rates that they are today if the result was some of the best schools in the world.
Right.
And a consistency across the state. And the reality is, despite our best efforts, there are schools that cost more to operate that aren't kicking out the same quality education as schools that cost less. And it's because of scale, it's because of...
Well, and most of our schools are not meeting what we were hoping that what they would meet. They're failing. And I just saw a statistic. Remember reading, writing, arithmetic? Yeah. Remember the 3 R's? We don't do well under them. None of them reach 60%. It's bad. And what people don't know is that Vermont, or the United States, of all the countries, is 25th. Yeah, wow. So you're bragging about being really good in the 25th state.
Yeah.
We have to shape up.
Yeah. But I like that idea, though. Vermonters are generous.
They are, absolutely.
But they're also very observant. And when they see their roads falling apart and they're paying the highest taxes of all their friends and family in other states, when they see that their schools aren't meeting their needs, when they, don't have good public safety systems, when it takes long for an ambulance or a police officer to get to their house because they don't have...
Wait till they see if we, God forbid, have another flood and the same places are flooded and the same people are going through the same deal about rebuilding their homes.
Yeah.
And also young people who have good education and like good students or learners, they choose not to live here because this is so expensive.
Yeah.
For young people to start a life here is really difficult for them. So even if like we succeed, like somehow to give a good education, those young people are leaving. So where is the balance, right?
I have a family friend, and they moved back on purpose because of the schools, and now they wish they hadn't. It's changed since he was here. And he came back and he goes, well, what is this? Yeah. All right, oops. We have to just promote public safety is number 2 on the priority list.
Yeah,
Good for you.
Well, we're just finding between the mental health crisis related to substance abuse disorder, when we talk about the backlogs in the courts, when you talk about the shortage of public safety officer, of police and firefighters.
Right.
You got to do something. You need some sort of systemic solution here. And so we've tried to back the governor and legislature's initiatives that reform the court system. We've tried to support more funding and resources for opioid response. We've tried to talk about... We'll talk about housing, I'm sure, here in a second, but I think the biggest thing you can do for public safety when it comes to mental health and stuff is build more housing.
Yeah. Well, and we've asked our police officers to do so much more than they used to in regard to mental health.
Yeah.
When Tony was over in Montpelier, he would come on the show a lot talking about what they have to do way beyond what they signed up to do, and they get yelled at.
It is still the same, unfortunately.
Is it? Yeah.
You don't go into the law enforcement profession to drive fast and catch bad guys anymore. You go into the law enforcement profession essentially to be a counselor.
Yep, that's right. Yeah. Which I don't know how much training they get in the academy. I don't think it's much.
It's not enough, that's for sure. Another thing that we've long championed, is more mental health training in the academy.
But they call that now Team 1 when they would send mental health people and people to back up the police to help them to get through a situation.
Yeah, really relying on the social service agencies.
I used to have Tony Fakos on here every other day. It drove me crazy. Anyway, building houses, that's number 3 on the hit parade here. That's how are you going to do that?
Yeah, well...
let me add, what happened? Is it money? But what is that large piece of land you've had there? The golf course and over by the brewery?
Here in Montpelier?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's a question for Palin, not me.
Oh, yeah, what's happening? I had the guy that was in charge of that project on the show, and it sounded to me like any day the shovel was going to be in the ground, and there's been nothing.
Yeah.
And
We are waiting for it to.
Would you
Yeah.
have grants or something?
I don't have any specific information, so let me look into it
Yeah, 'cause
for
that-
you, and the
every
next
time I
time we
go
can
by there,
start
I'm
with
like,
it.
What's
Yeah.
happening? Because that should be a lot of houses.
What we find across Vermont is the number one obstacle to building more housing is infrastructure. And so if you don't have water and sewer, if you don't have the roads and sidewalks already built, if you don't have power lines run to the property, it's simply too expensive for a developer to develop the
Right.
property. So let's talk about a great thing that happened recently. We were part of a coalition last year that passed the single biggest infrastructure investment in the history of Vermont.
Really?
The legislature and the governor got together and agreed to pass the Community Housing Infrastructure Program. It is a $2 billion program over the next 10 years that will pay for public infrastructure to be run to a housing development.
Wow.
And so, this is the problem right now in Vermont. When you build the housing, the developer is paving the roads to the city standard. The developer is putting in the water and sewer pipe, paying those connections. This program will allow you to make these improvements as a developer in a community and recover those costs over the life of the project.
Wow.
Through a tax increment.
Who's
financing.
overseeing this project? Is it assigned to a?
Yep, VEPC, the
Oh,
Vermont
oh,
Economic
okay. Oh,
Progress
great.
Council. So you apply for essentially a mini tax increment financing program through VEPC, and
Excellent.
either the municipality can hold the debt or the developer can hold the debt.
So is it the chip we are talking
Yep.
about? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. We are turning our
Yeah.
how can I look to chip instead of
Yeah, 'cause
TIF,
I
right? Like
think
TIF, chip,
Yep.
so many things. So yeah, we are talking that it will be better for us in the long run. And there is another debate, right? Who is taking the debt, like developers or
Yeah,
city?
right.
And city, we don't want to do
Yep.
that. So
But what's the beauty of that
Yeah,
program,
yeah.
that you have the ability as the city to have the developer take on the
If
responsibility.
they're willing to do that, yeah.
That's a
And
big
there's
change.
very few size land, like we were just talking about, in towns. It's hard to find it. I know Berlin has a lot of land, which is very unusual, so.
And also, when we talk about housing, we are talking really long-term construction, development, and it is very good if cities can split that cost, because otherwise the current residents will pay
That's right.
all the
Back to
cost.
us.
Then
Right.
maybe in 10 years, 20 years, they will not see or use that housing. So that's another thing. So I think state is really helping in that sense.
It's a big victory.
What are you looking at primarily? Because I had somebody from one of the planning organizations up in the Northeast Kingdom. She was on the show, Catherine Dimitri.
Yeah.
And she said that it's very weird that mostly it's single people or elderly people, one person that are looking for housing, or perhaps two, but not as many families. So that should, I would think, would be a fairly, I don't want to say blasé about it, but fairly easy to have those type of apartments.
Yeah, it's certainly less expensive than having to build 4-bedroom homes,
Yeah,
but
right.
it's still, the state is paying, when the state's made a record investment in affordable housing development since the pandemic. We're talking like approaching $1 billion in the last 5 or 6 years, but we're paying $600,000 a unit to build an apartment. So
That's crazy.
It is crazy, but that is what is happening. And that's for, think about a apartment building with 20 units in it,
Wow.
10 units in it. They're paying $600,000 per unit in some of these projects. We got to do something about that
Yeah, for
because
sure. That's staggering.
And every year we wait. The
Goes up.
prices are
right.
So it is like
Yep.
you don't see the same price when you start planning.
Somebody
the
told me when the
project.
interstate was built, it was $1 million a mile. Now it's $10-15 million a mile.
it's $1 million to build a mile of sidewalk in the town now. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yep.
And it all falls to us. And the last one you have is prioritize transportation. I did see something in the pilot discussion about looking at transportation. There's no or very little transportation in Vermont where you can't get from here to there. we just don't have it.
Well, a huge problem. The towns and cities of Vermont control 80% of the roads, yet they only get 20% of the funding that the state dedicates to transportation. So our transportation infrastructure is really suffering. The legislature is trying to come up with solutions. The governor's trying, but the governor's budget this year proposed a 7% decrease in transportation funding for cities and towns.
I listened to his press conference the other. He sounded just so down.
Yeah.
I mean, he sounded, I don't want to say depressed because he doesn't get that way, but just sad that there wasn't any really anything to energize anybody. It was just, here we are.
Tough times for everyone,
Yeah,
right? Really.
It's sad.
We need some new solutions for transportation as people drive, burn less gas. We need to come up with another alternative way to fund it.
Right.
As the increased costs to pave a mile of road go up, we need to find a way to fund it. Josh Hanford, who's the legislative director for the league, and I were talking the other day, and we're like, a fix-a-flat is not the solution to our transportation policy.
That's funny.
And the reality is, right now, I think the only solution that towns have is to repair potholes and hope that you don't have.
So can I just ask you, what are we doing to make sure that flooding doesn't happen as it did? Are they doing anything?
Yes, I think they're doing a
Are
lot. First of all, huge changes to the way towns do emergency management planning after the flooding, increase investments in resiliency projects. Look up in Waterbury where FEMA and the state are funding the excavation of a huge piece of the river corridor. There have been dozens, if not hundreds, of buyouts of properties that were in the flood
Oh,
zone.
good. That you don't see, but that's good.
Those are things that have
Good.
been happening since since Irene. We've made major changes. When the next flood comes, it's going to be bad, but we're going to have changes. And unfortunately, on the federal side, there have been changes to the federal funding mechanisms. There's a huge effort in DC to reform FEMA and change FEMA and shift the responsibility of paying for disasters from the federal government to the state government.
I was blown away by what people have to do after their home is either gone down the river or just completely, but you have to have all of this documentation. Like, you don't have that under your bed, so you can, we used to have go bags 100 years ago, but nobody does that anymore. So you have to go to FEMA and you have to go to SBA, and with totally different forms. And I said to them, have you ever thought of like having just one form and you can oh no. I said, why not? Have the poor person, but you have to have your whole life story handy while you're trying to save your life and your families. It's really foolish.
But I think the cities, towns, and the state have done a lot
Good,
since
I'm glad to hear
the
that.
last floods to become more resilient and more prepared.
Yeah.
A disaster is going to come eventually, and it's going to be bad, but I think we're more prepared for it.
Because I think the one thing that I hear in Montpelier, there weren't people to do something basic like the floors. A lot of stores couldn't open up because of the wet floor and the mold, but they didn't have enough people, tradesmen, to do the floors and just that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But anyway, Ted, thank you very much for coming on our show, our very first guest. Yay!
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, yeah.
This was great, and thank you.
Yeah, it was very joyful for me. But I don't know, like all the things, bills and everything we talk. I hope everybody who watches our show will enjoy too.
People need to know this stuff, and to find a simple, the KISS theory, explain the bill simply so I can understand it. It's very complicated.
So hard. I know.
I don't envy your job. Although I do envy the people that you work with.
I have the best job in
Yeah.
the state of Vermont. I
You've
get
got
to
some
work
great
with,
employees.
and I get to work with the most interesting people, city councilors, town select board members, clerks. They are the nicest, most community-minded, volunteer-driven people in the world. So I feel very lucky.
And I agree with that. That's really great. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thanks,
Thanks.
Thanks, Pam.
Thank you.